There comes a time in your life when the breaking must stop. A time when the weeping ends, the wounds begin to close, and your soul finally stands up, not with fists of fury, but with the calm, unshakable power of someone who has seen it all and survived it. You don't need to announce this new version of yourself. The evidence is in your silence. It's in your walk. It's in your peace. Nobody and nothing will ever hurt you again because you have discovered who you are and, more importantly, whose you are. You see, life has a way of testing the foundation you're standing on. It will send storms to find out whether you're grounded in truth or buried in illusion. And if you've lived long enough, you've felt what it means to be betrayed by someone you loved. You've learned what it means to be overlooked when you gave your best. You've been through situations that tried to convince you that you were not enough, but here you are, still standing. Not because you didn't get hit, but because the hit didn't finish you. You are about to walk into a season where your heart is no longer on the auction block, where your peace is not negotiable, where your emotions are not subject to the manipulation of the moment, because you have outgrown your former self. You have graduated from victimhood to vision, from sorrow to strategy, from reaction to revelation. You don't have to prove anything to anyone. You don't have to beg to be respected. You don't need validation from voices that never valued your worth. When you finally understand that God alone defines you, you stop allowing broken people to redefine you through their dysfunction. You stop letting temporary experiences rewrite your eternal identity. Let me tell you why nobody and nothing will ever hurt you again. It's not because evil will cease to exist. It's not because people have suddenly become kind. It's because you've changed. You become spiritually intelligent. You've stopped trying to save what God is trying to remove. You've stopped arguing with the blind. You've stopped dancing with devils dressed as angels. You've stopped watering dead plants hoping for green leaves. You've matured. Pain taught you. Oh yes, it was a hard teacher. It didn't whisper, it screamed, it didn't ask for permission. It kicked down the door of your life and demanded your attention. But through the chaos, something inside of you awakened. You began to see clearly. You began to discern. And once you started seeing people for who they really are, you no longer handed them the knife they used to cut you. You stopped trying to be understood and chose to be at peace. You stopped trying to fix what wasn't yours to fix. And because of that shift, because of that decision to finally place your trust in divine timing instead of human promises, you became untouchable, not in arrogance, but in awareness. You now know too much to fall for the same traps. You now understand too deeply to entertain shallow games. Nobody and nothing will ever hurt you again because you finally built boundaries. You stopped answering disrespect with explanations. You've stopped turning the other cheek to every devil in disguise. You've stopped allowing access to people who mishandle you. You are no longer a victim of your empathy. You are no longer captive to your emotions. You feel, but you do not follow. You love, but you do not lose yourself. You give, but you no longer give away your identity. You have been fortified by fire. The heartbreak that almost crushed you became your testimony. The lies that were spoken against you only elevated the truth about you. The abandonment you faced only exposed your need to be planted in God, not people. You now walk with a wisdom that can't be taught in books. You've earned your freedom, and that freedom came with a cost that most will never understand. They think you've changed, and you have. They say you're distant, you are. They say you're cold, but you're just clear. Clear on who you are, clear on where you're going, clear on what you will no longer tolerate. This clarity is what protects you. This clarity is what shields you from pain. You are not bitter, you're better. You are not angry, you're aware. You are not closed off, you are covered. Nobody and nothing will ever hurt you again, because the only opinion that matters now is the one who made you. You have stopped chasing closure from people who were never meant to go with you into your next chapter. You don't need them to explain why they left. Their absence was your answer. Their silence was your confirmation. And now, instead of begging for love, you attract it. Instead of seeking approval, you walk in assurance. Instead of reacting, you observe. And from this position of power, you now govern your life with discipline, discernment, and divine direction. You are no longer available for confusion. You are no longer accessible to chaos. You are no longer on the menu of manipulators. The gate is locked, the standard is high, and the price for your presence is purpose. This is not about revenge. This is about revelation. You don't want them to suffer. You just finally love yourself enough not to suffer for them anymore. That's how you win. You win in silence. You win in healing. You win by no longer bleeding for people who never intended to stop the bleeding. You win by breaking cycles, not by returning to them. You win by remembering who you are even when others forget. Your power is in your pause. Your strength is in your silence. Your elevation is in your detachment. You don't chase, you choose. You don't beg, you bless. You don't argue, you walk away. And this new version of you cannot be shaken by small minds or stirred by small talk. Your identity is no longer up for debate. You have finally come home to yourself. Nobody and nothing will ever hurt you again because you now protect your peace like it's sacred. You guard your heart, not out of fear, but out of wisdom. You've learned that not everyone deserves your energy. Not every invitation requires your presence. Not every connection deserves your covenant. You no longer sacrifice your joy to be accepted. You no longer shrink to make others feel comfortable. You are done explaining your standards. You are done apologizing for your growth. You are done lowering your value for people who can't afford your worth. The ones who used to trigger you will no longer move you. The places that used to drain you will no longer attract you. You have entered a new level of living, a new frequency of favor, a new rhythm of rest. You are no longer surviving, you're soaring. And when you soar, you don't respond to barking dogs. You don't argue with doubters. You don't stoop to the level of those who tried to bury you. Why? Because you now know you were a seed, and they didn't realize that by covering you, they were positioning you for growth. So don't be mad at the pain. Don't resent the process. Don't curse the betrayal. It all served a purpose. It built you. It stretched you. It opened your eyes. And now you are no longer naive. You are no longer emotionally homeless. You have built your house on rock, not sand. And storms may come, but you will not fall again. This time you will not be destroyed. This time you will not lose yourself. This time you will not chase what's not yours. You will not cry over closed doors. You will not suffer for being loyal to the wrong people, because you have awakened, and once your eyes are opened, you cannot go back to sleep. You see, when your soul matures, you start to detach from things that once held you captive. The arguments that used to spark a fire in your chest now seem pointless. The validation you once craved now seems cheap. The pain that used to break you now just reminds you how far you've come. You've built yourself into someone that trials can no longer touch the same way. You've learned how to sit still and let God fight battles for you that used to drain your entire energy trying to handle on your own. Your heart is no longer fragile, it's fortified. You're not hardened, but you're no longer soft in the hands of manipulators. You love without losing your logic. You forgive without giving access. You serve without selling your soul. You are not afraid to be alone, because now you realize you are never truly alone. He is with you. Nobody and nothing will ever hurt you again, because you finally made the internal shift Your expectations are rooted in reality. Your loyalty is guarded with discernment. You no longer bond over brokenness. You no longer confuse familiarity with loyalty. You've become spiritually secure, and that security is your shield. That wisdom is your armor. That insight is your weapon. This is what transformation feels like. This is what healing sounds like. It's quiet, it's steady, it's calm. It doesn't announce itself with noise. It walks in peace. You are not who you used to be. And because of that, the things that used to break you, you can't even touch you now. They lost their grip the moment you stepped into your true identity. So walk boldly now, move with confidence, speak with clarity, love with boundaries, forgive with wisdom, because the season of suffering is over. You've been tried, tested, and transformed. You've been through the wilderness and came out with oil, and now you will not apologize for your glow. You will not hide your peace to make others feel secure in their chaos. Nobody and nothing will ever hurt you again. Not because the world changed, but because you did. And that, beloved, is the greatest victory of all. Pain is not your enemy. It never was. Pain was your instructor. It was sent to reveal, not to ruin. It didn't come into your life to break you, even though it may have felt like you were falling apart. It came to teach you how to rise again with more wisdom than you had before. The tears you cried were not wasted. The heartbreak you endured was not in vain. The silence you sat in was not empty. Pain was never meant to be your master, only your mentor. It was never meant to have the final say, only to say something you needed to hear, something you were ignoring, something divine in disguise. You see, pain has a way of exposing what comfort tries to hide. When you're comfortable, you overlook the red flags. When you're surrounded by what you think is love, you excuse what is really manipulation. When you're infatuated with the idea of who someone could be, you tolerate who they really are. But pain strips away the fantasy. It peels back the curtain. It forces you to confront what you've been avoiding. It opens your eyes. And when you begin to see with clarity, you begin to heal with intention. Nobody and nothing will ever hurt you again, because now you understand what pain was trying to teach you. It wasn't punishment, it was preparation. It wasn't rejection, it was redirection. It wasn't abandonment, it was alignment. The very thing you thought was destroying you was actually delivering you from people, habits, and patterns that were keeping you stuck. You no longer run from pain, you respect it now. You've seen what it can do, but more importantly, you've seen what it can produce. That heartbreak taught you how to love yourself. That betrayal taught you how to trust your intuition. That disappointment taught you how to set standards. That failure taught you how to fight smarter, not harder. Pain introduced you to parts of yourself you would have never met in comfort. It built your discernment. It sharpened your wisdom. It matured your spirit. You're not the same, and you're not supposed to be. You grew in the dark. You evolved in silence. You learned to smile even when your soul was bleeding. You mastered the art of walking with broken feet until you found healing. And now nobody and nothing will ever hurt you again, because you have become whole. Not perfect, but whole. You know where your scars are and you protect them. You don't let just anyone close to your heart anymore. You don't hand out your energy like candy. You are careful, not bitter. Selective, not selfish. Healed, not hardened. Understanding pain as a teacher means you no longer waste time blaming people for how they treated you. You see them now as messengers, not of truth, but of clarity. They showed you who they were. And it was painful, but it was also freeing. Because now you don't need to guess. You don't need to hope someone will change. You don't need to wait for apologies. Their actions were the closure. Their absence was the gift. You've been through enough to know that some people were never meant to stay. They were sent to trigger the healing, sent to activate your awareness, sent to disrupt your patterns. And now that you've seen it, now that you've learned the lesson, you don't have to repeat the cycle. You don't have to go back. You don't have to question your value ever again. Pain taught you to value your peace. It showed you that nothing external can give you what only your Creator can secure. It taught you to stop outsourcing your joy. It taught you that no relationship, no friendship, no opportunity is worth sacrificing your sanity. You now understand that peace is not passive. It is a decision, a boundary, a shield, and you wear it well now. Not as armor from the world, but as a covenant with yourself. There's a stillness about you now, a quiet strength, a settled confidence. You don't react the way you used to. You don't explain yourself as much. You don't seek to convince anyone of your worth. You are rooted. And when you're rooted, storms don't shake you, they cleanse you, they remove the dead branches, they purify the soil, they reveal who's really meant to grow with you. Nobody and nothing will ever hurt you again because you no longer sit at tables where love is conditional. You no longer bond through brokenness. You no longer lower your frequency to fit in. You've outgrown environments that required you to play small. You no longer shrink to avoid making others uncomfortable. Your presence is no longer up for discount. You've raised the price, not in arrogance, but in alignment. You know now that you are not for everyone, and that is your protection. You don't chase anymore. You attract. You don't explain. You observe. You don't retaliate. You release. That is growth. That is healing. That is the power of understanding pain, not as a weapon, but as a lesson. You used to take everything personally. Now you understand projection. You used to internalize rejection. Now you see redirection. You used to hold on to what was killing you, hoping it would change. Now you let go quickly because healing has taught you that peace is expensive, and anything that costs you your peace is too expensive. You are no longer emotionally homeless. You've built a sanctuary within, a place where you can rest without pretending, a place where you are seen not for what you can do, but for who you are. You've finally become your own home. That's why you're no longer desperate for others to stay. You don't fear being alone because now you understand the power of solitude. It's in the quiet moments that you found yourself. It's in the silence that your spirit was restored. It was in the absence of applause that you learned how to clap for yourself. Nobody and nothing will ever hurt you again because your identity is no longer in the hands of others. You have reclaimed your power. You have reclaimed your voice. You have remembered who you are, not who the world told you to be, but who you were before the pain, before the performance, before the pretense. You've come back to the original version of yourself, the one that was born with purpose, the one that carries divine authority, the one that doesn't need permission to shine. The old you tolerated dysfunction. The old you stayed too long in places your soul had outgrown. The old you kept giving more than you received, hoping your love would be enough to heal broken people. But that version of you no longer exists. That version was a seed, a necessary stage, but you have grown now. You are not a seed, you are a tree, rooted, fruitful, strong. You now know that people can only meet you as deeply as they've met themselves. And you've stopped expecting the emotionally unavailable to show up for you. You've stopped expecting truth from liars, loyalty from opportunists, love from those who do not love themselves. You've stopped bargaining with your worth, and in that decision you have ended the cycle of unnecessary pain. You've finally learned the art of release. You've learned that letting go is not loss, it's liberation. You've learned that closure is not always a conversation, it's a decision. You've learned that not all endings are failures, some are divine. And you've stopped grieving what you now realize was grace. So now you stand different, you walk different, you talk different, not because you become someone new, but because you've remembered who you always were. You've returned to truth, you've returned to yourself, and that return has healed you. Nobody and nothing will ever hurt you again, not because life won't try, but because now you see through it. You see the patterns, you discern the energy, you feel the shift, you notice the red flags. You don't doubt yourself like you used to. You trust your gut, you trust your God, you trust the process. Pain used to paralyze you, now it polishes you. Disappointment used to destroy you, now it develops you. You've flipped the script, you've taken your power back. You no longer see setbacks, you see setups. You don't fear endings, you expect new beginnings. You don't dread challenges, you face them with faith. Because of everything you've endured and everything you've learned, you now understand that true power comes from peace. Peace with your past, peace with your choices, peace with your imperfections, peace with your growth. And that peace cannot be taken from you. It was forged in fire, it was earned in the wilderness, and it is protected by the wisdom of knowing who you are and who you belong to. This is your new life. One where your soul is guarded, your heart is grounded, your mind is clear, and your purpose is focused. You are no longer driven by trauma, you are led by truth. You are no longer reacting, you are responding with wisdom. You are no longer hoping they see your worth, you are living in your worth. Nobody and nothing will ever hurt you again, not because the world changed, but because you did, because you learned, because you healed, because you now sit at the table God prepared for you, not begging, but belonging. And that, beloved, is unshakable. You have now come into the understanding that attachment is not love and clinging is not connection. You have matured past the point of thinking that holding on is a virtue. You've come to understand that what is meant for you will not manipulate you, control you, or require you to abandon yourself. Real love gives room. Real love brings peace. And because you now walk in wisdom, you no longer fight to stay in places that cost you your dignity. That's mastery. That's growth. That's spiritual elevation. You've learned the art of detachment, not as a form of avoidance, but as a tool of alignment. You are no longer emotionally enslaved to people's presence or absence. You don't chase what leaves. You don't collapse under rejection. You don't beg for closure. You recognize now that some things ending was God's greatest favor in disguise. You don't try to glue things back together that God broke apart. You don't resurrect what was divinely buried. You have come to accept that not everything you lose is a loss. You now live with open hands. You allow what is for you to stay, and you allow what no longer serves your destiny to leave. You don't force. You don't beg. You don't negotiate with dysfunction. This is not arrogance. This is clarity. This is spiritual authority. Knowing who you are and who you are not. Knowing what you carry and what you must protect. This level of detachment does not mean you are numb. It means you are wise. You feel everything deeply, but you no longer allow your feelings to govern your actions. You've matured past emotional impulsiveness. You don't make decisions based on temporary emotions. You move by discernment now. You operate by principles. You are led by truth, not tears. Nobody and nothing will ever hurt you again because you have reclaimed the keys to your emotional house. You don't allow just anyone to walk through the doors of your soul. You don't open yourself up to chaos disguised as chemistry. You don't confuse intensity with intimacy. You've developed the discernment to know the difference between a soul connection and a soul trap. That discernment is part of your spiritual authority, and spiritual authority is not loud, it is not boastful, it is not forceful, it is quiet, it is firm, it is unbothered. When you walk in spiritual authority, you don't have to prove anything. You don't need validation. You don't seek revenge. You simply know. You know who you are. You know who sent you. You know your assignment. And that knowing makes you untouchable. You are no longer triggered by people who try to devalue you. You're not moved by the opinions of those who never truly saw you. You don't lower your light to make others feel comfortable. You finally stopped auditioning for acceptance, and in doing so, you've found a deeper acceptance, the kind that doesn't come from applause, but from alignment with your purpose. That's why nobody and nothing will ever hurt you again, because your identity is no longer up for debate. You are not tossed around by circumstances. You are anchored. You are rooted. Your joy doesn't come from compliments. Your peace doesn't depend on outcomes. You are no longer addicted to control. You've learned to trust. You've learned to rest. You've learned to let go. You now understand that peace is your power, and you protect it like a sacred treasure. You don't entertain chaos. You don't engage in fruitless battles. You've let go of the need to always explain yourself. You've stopped showing up where honor is absent. You've stopped talking where listening is missing. You've stopped fighting for people who don't fight for you. You know now that silence is a response, distance is a decision, and walking away is an act of strength, not weakness. You don't stay where you are merely tolerated. You don't pour endlessly into cups that only take and never pour back. You don't water what withers your soul. You've stopped participating in your own pain. And that, beloved, is liberation. Your detachment is not coldness. It is clarity. It is the result of being burned so many times that you now recognize the fire before it reaches you. You are not bitter, you are better. You are not angry, you are aware. And because of that awareness, you no longer invite unnecessary suffering into your life. You've learned that every person is a lesson. Some are blessings, some are warnings, but all are teachers. And now that you've learned, you don't need to repeat the class. You've passed, you've graduated, and you no longer apologize for moving differently. You are not who you used to be, that version of you that needed constant reassurance, that needed to be chosen, that tolerated emotional starvation for the crumbs of attention. That version is gone. What has emerged is a sovereign soul, a healed heart, a wise spirit, a person who knows how to walk away with grace, a person who knows that losing others is never more dangerous than losing yourself, and you will never lose yourself again because you've learned to be with yourself. You've learned to love your own company. You've discovered the sanctuary that exists within your own presence. You're not afraid of solitude anymore. Because solitude is not emptiness, it is elevation. It is where you meet your true self. It is where you hear the voice of God. It is where your spirit is recalibrated. And now you crave that stillness more than the noise of validation. You crave alignment more than attention. You crave peace more than proximity. This is what mastery looks like. Not a life without problems, but a life where problems don't dominate your emotions. Not a life without enemies, but a life where enemies cannot distract you. Not a life without betrayal, but a life where betrayal doesn't define you. You walk in victory, not because everything goes right, but because you refuse to bow to what's wrong. You now understand that spiritual authority is not about controlling others, it's about governing yourself. You don't react to everything, you respond with discernment. You don't internalize every insult, you see the brokenness behind it. You don't carry offenses for years, you release quickly. You forgive not because they deserve it, but because you deserve peace. You forgive, but you remember. You remember what they showed you. You remember what the pain taught you. You remember what God revealed in the silence. You move forward with wisdom. You don't deny the lesson. You carry it like armor. It doesn't make you bitter. It makes you better. It sharpens you. It empowers you. And it keeps you from going back to places you've outgrown. Nobody and nothing will ever hurt you again because you no longer betray yourself to be accepted. You don't silence your intuition for the sake of false harmony. You don't compromise your standards to keep someone from leaving. You finally made peace with the idea that some people's departure is part of your deliverance. You are no longer afraid of people walking away. You're more afraid of staying stuck in patterns that drain you. You are no longer loyal to dysfunction. You are loyal to your destiny. You don't confuse potential with purpose. You don't confuse chemistry with calling. You know now that what is real will never require you to lose yourself. So you walk differently now. You carry yourself with quiet confidence. You smile with eyes that have seen too much and survived it all. You don't broadcast your next move. You let the fruit speak. You don't announce your healing. You live it. You don't beg for peace. You embody it. Nobody and nothing will ever hurt you again because you have surrendered to divine timing. You no longer rush. You don't chase, you wait, you prepare, you trust. You know that everything that's meant for you will arrive on schedule, no sooner, no later. You are not desperate, you are discerning. You are not fearful. You've learned that spiritual authority means walking in patience. It means understanding that delay is not denial, that closed doors are protection, that detours are part of the process. You don't panic when things fall apart anymore. You praise. You don't complain, you strategize. You don't beg, you pray. This is your era of elevation, not because everything around you is perfect, but because everything within you is aligned. You've been through the wilderness, you've cried the silent tears, you've faced the betrayal, you've endured the silence, and now you walk with a power that cannot be shaken by opinions or threatened by loss. You are unshakable, unbreakable, unstoppable, not because of who you are, but because of who you belong to. Because of what you've survived, because of what you've learned, because of what you've chosen. And you've chosen wisely. You've chosen healing. You've chosen growth. You've chosen purpose. And now you live in that purpose. You wake up with clarity. You rest with peace. You speak with authority. You love with intention. You give without losing yourself. You show up without shrinking. You've become the version of you that no longer has to fear being hurt again, because now you know how to protect your spirit, guard your heart, and trust your path. Nobody and nothing will ever hurt you again, because you've mastered the sacred art of detachment, because you've taken back your authority, because you've healed from what should have destroyed you, because you finally understand that the greatest weapon against the enemy is not revenge, it's your refusal to break. And you won't break, not now, not ever. You're too wise, too rooted, too protected, too focused, too aware. You've come too far to fold. You fought too hard to surrender, and now you're ready. Ready to walk in everything that's been waiting for you, ready to receive what you had to grow into, ready to lead, to love, to live, whole, healed, and unshaken. And that's why, beloved, nobody and nothing will ever hurt you again.